Kentucky.
A group of us chose to filibuster this bill because we think it wastes money. We think it gives money to one of the most wasteful agencies in government, the National Science Foundation. Since the early 1970s and since William Proxmire began giving the Golden Fleece Award, for 50 years there have been a recurrence of waste from the National Science Foundation, from NIH, and from even the State Department. We discussed earlier some of these, and I have a handful of more that I think the American people should know about where their money's going to. So the NIH spent $2 million in research to see if using a hot tub can lower stress. Really? I think we probably could have just agreed to that. But no, we had to spend $2 million to study if you're soaking in a hot tub, whether that helps to relieve your stress. Now, the NIH also spent about $1 million to see if they could help people overcome their fear of dentists. Really? NIH spent almost $7 million of cancer research money to create an automatically flushing smart toilet. That's right, $7 million for an automatically flushing toilet. And here's the bonus. The toilet will actually take pictures of your derriere from the inside of the toilet bowl, should you wish to have those for posterity. $7 million for a smart toilet. How does this go on and nobody does anything? You know what we do? We flush more money down this smart toilet. We give them more money and nobody bats an eye. This is the problem of government. Nobody denies the waste. Nobody denies the ridiculous projects that are being funded, and yet year in, year out, it continues. We need to reform the process. We need to have a taxpayer advocate on the committee that votes on the projects. We need to have somebody with a grain of salt that is voting on these projects. Somebody who says that studying whether humans will eat ants to curb global warming, whether that's a useful expenditure of $3 million to study whether or not humans will eat enough ants to keep the globe from warming. This goes on, and the people at home are like, how could this happen? How could you spend money on this? But it happens year in, year out because we never vote for less money. It's always more. So a group of the senators here today are filibustering this bill because somebody's got to point out that the waste and abuse of money goes on. The National Science Foundation, the king of wasteful spending, spent $100,000 to teach social scientists how to apply for grants. So it's not bad enough that we're just, handing out money like it, grows on trees, but then we got to teach people how to get more of the free money. There actually was another cache of money that went to Central American countries trying to teach them how to get more of our money. Really? We're actually teaching foreigners how to apply to get grant money from our government that's $28 trillion in the hole. We're annually $1 trillion in the hole. In the last couple of years, we're $3 to $4 trillion because of all these COVID bailouts and all of this crazy government run amok. And at the same time, we're $2, $3 trillion in the hole a year. We're sending $100,000 to teach people how to get more grants. The USAID spent $48 million helping disconnected Tunisian youth to not feel like, they are a problem to society, to help them cope with modern society. Well, look, coping's not easy for young people anywhere around the world, but I guarantee $48 million that we don't have, that we have to borrow from China to send to Tunisia, is not a good expenditure of money, probably helped no one, probably enriched some contractor somewhere. Somebody steals some off the top. There's always a little skimming operation. It was once estimated that as much as half to 70% of foreign aid was skimmed off the top, either by corrupt dictators in the countries receiving the money or simply by graft throughout the government in these countries that we send the money to. Often the foreign aid money was going to countries with people who had dictators for 20, 30, 40 years, and we were giving money to dictators. National Science Foundation spent $4.6 million to study the connection between getting drunk and falling down. Now, you'd think that would be obvious. You get drunk, you fall down. But no, we had to go ahead and study whether getting drunk and falling down was something that happens. We spent $4 million if you get drunk, will you fall down? This is insane. Not one person, a few of us, but not a majority will stand up and say enough's enough. The NSF needs less money, not more. The NIH spent $36 million to research why stress makes hair turn gray. I'm at the age, I need to know that one. I mean, why does stress make your hair turn gray? Really? Nobody would pay for this. If we got 100 assembled Americans and said, vote on whether or not you should spend $36 million studying why your hair turns gray, not one rational, common sense American would vote for this. And yet this Congress is going to increase the budget of the National Science Foundation by 68%. The National Science Foundation spent $2.5 million to research the effects of daydreaming. I'm not kidding. You can't make this stuff up. And so what are we going to do? Increase their budget, $29 billion in more money for the National Science Foundation. They ought to be ashamed. One side of the aisle doesn't give a fig how much we're spending, but the other side of the aisle that I reside on the right, pretends to care about the debt, and yet the majority of them will vote for this monstrous bill. The National Science Foundation used $1.5 million to study how to make tomatoes taste better. They spent a lot of money, they spent a lot of time, they wrote up their report, and this is shocking. This is groundbreaking research. They found that if you add sugar to tomatoes, they taste better. You can't make this stuff up, but it goes on and on and on. I'm glad to be joined on the floor by the senator from Utah, and I will reserve the remainder of my time and pass the baton.